If you've played at least a few Zelda games before, then you probably know of the Triforce, made by the goddesses of power, wisdom, and courage. The Triforce is known for being one of the most powerful items in the Zelda universe. The place where this power was originally hidden is called the Sacred Realm. This is the place where the goddesses left for the heavens. However, the goddesses were smart and left behind someone to guard their sacred power, the goddess Hylia. However, despite Hylia's best attempts, evil still sought after the Triforce. But at this point, we all know the story. We know how the goddess Hylia had to sacrifice her immortality as a goddess and become a Hylian because she was unable to wield the Triforce as a divine being. We know that Hylia chose a boy from Skyloft, Link, to be her chosen knight and defeat the Demon King himself, Demise. And of course, you know that never truly happened, because as Demise breathed his dying breath, he cursed the world, saying that as long as the bloodline of the goddess and the spirit of hero existed, then he will rise again. The formula is the same for almost every other Zelda game, with Ganon rising and Link and Zelda banding together, and together the forces of good will defeat evil. So why is this important? Well, it's important because there is an outlier in the Zelda series, Breath of the Wild. Breath of the Wild does not have a super linear story. Most of the charm of its game is found in the world and its side quests. However, there is still something there. The majority of the story takes place in flashbacks, little slivers of what life was like for Link and Zelda before the calamity. And it's in these flashbacks that we learn Princess Zelda's story. Princess Zelda's mother died when she was at a young age. Obviously, this was traumatic on its own, but this posed a problem for everyone in Hyrule. You see, the direct descendants of the goddess Hylia, the royal family, is blessed with the power to steal away Ganon whenever he returns to Hyrule. But this power requires training to unlock, and unfortunately for Zelda, her mother died a year before Zelda's training was to begin. So Zelda lost a teacher as well as a mother. Under pressure from a prophecy of Ganon's revival, Zelda spent the next several years training to awaken her sealing power, even to the point of making herself sick. But it never worked. The calamity Ganon awoke, and Hyrule's champions were killed. While Link and Zelda were fleeing to Kakariko Village, the scars of battle began to wear on the princess's appointed knight. Link seemed to accept his fate, but then the most epic scene in this game happened. Listen, man, I don't care that this game came out 6 years ago, that part still makes me smile. But this was a pretty huge deal when the game first came out. After all, the game never once acknowledges the existence of the Triforce until this point. We knew that they had at least some knowledge of the Golden Goddess's existence because of a line in a cutscene and the fact that they all have altars in front of the Temple of Time. But the Triforce itself was never mentioned. The entire game had led us to believe that this power was the power of the goddess Hylia. And then the mark of the Triforce appeared on the back of the princess's hand. People were confused, and when there's confusion, there are theories. Almost immediately, so many theories came out debating whether or not Zelda contains the goddess Hylia's sealing powers, or if she possesses a Triforce. And it's something that's still debated to this day. Heck, even I took a crack at this mystery in my early days on YouTube. However, that video was from almost 3 years ago, and even though it was a valuable experience that my channel wouldn't be the same without, it still makes me hurt to think about. However, I wanted to take another go at this mystery now that I'm older and have been doing this for a lot longer. So without further ado, here is Zelda's true powers. When researching this video, my original plan was to go through everything that this family had done and show the origins of all those abilities. Then I realized that video would be way too long and be mind-blowingly dull. So instead, I thought we'd narrow it down a bit. Instead of tracing every Zelda's actions and power sources, I thought we'd focus on the stuff that Zelda of the Wild did and trace them back down the timeline as far as we can go. This will help in determine the source of her abilities, whether that be her ancestors or the sacred force of the gods. That being said, let's get started. The Bow of Light is a very iconic weapon that is found in many different Zelda games. One of the most notable places we see this happen in is Ocarina of Time, when Zelda gives Link the light arrows before being abducted by Ganon. So Zelda summoning this item makes it her sacred powers, right? Not quite. You see, it's true that it's been summoned purely by Hylia's power in other instances, like in Wind Waker and Spirit Tracks, but the series makes it clear that not only the goddess Hylia can summon this weapon. In Twilight Princess, Zelda in fact is the one who uses the Bow of Light, but it was given to her by the light spirits, in a very similar way that Zelda gives Link the Bow of Light in Breath of the Wild. Sure, Zelda of Time had Hylia's power, but also had the Triforce of Wisdom, so it really can't be conclusively Hylia's power when and literally the first time we see this in the series, it's gifted to us by some random old man in the Minish Cap. I find it most likely that anyone with a connection to the divine can possess this weapon, not just Hylia. Possessing the Triforce would qualify you for this, so I don't think the Bow of Light can be used for either side of the argument. In the Zelda series, the princess has been known to have prophetic dreams. She does it in A Link to the Past, she does it in Link Between Worlds, and she does it in Breath of the Wild. The earliest instance of Zelda herself having these dreams is in Ocarina of Time, where Zelda sees a vision of storm clouds covering the land of Hyrule, but a figure holding the spiritual stone of forest, accompanied by a fairy, breaks through that cloud. Zelda then concludes the storm must symbolize Ganondorf, Link must be the figure in her dream, and sends Link on a quest to retrieve the other two spiritual stones. However, I feel like we can trace this ability back even further. At the beginning of Skyward Sword, Link has a dream where he saw demise on the surface, before seeing Fi, and she tells him he must awaken and his time has come. Interestingly enough, this dream seems to parallel Zelda of the Wild's dream, with a bright woman being shrouded in light and trying to speak to her. However, it's clear that this dream is because of Hylia's influence, as Fi is literally right there. This tells me that not only can Hylia have these dreams, but also can the people connected to her, which makes sense for someone who sits at the edge of time. I mean, we even see this in action in Ocarina of Time when Link also has visions of Ganon's invasions. His visions were just a bit more clear though. So I think we can conclusively say that this is Hylia's power here, but it can also tell us two things about said power. One, it affects the people around them, and two, you don't need training to unlock said power, as Ocarina of Time Zelda was too young to have started her training. This tells us that there are parts of the power that need to be intentionally unlocked, and parts that come naturally. I'll keep this one simple because it's literally just a blast of light. Zelda has never really done this before. In fact, most Zeldas are characterized as being rather helpless, with a few exceptions, so the developers can make her the damsel in distress. The only exception is when Zelda uses the Bow of Light, was trained as a Sheikah. While I'm sure the goddess Hylia had other ways of fighting, her direct reincarnation with all her memories couldn't even do something like this. I'm sure it would have been real convenient if she could just... So this to me points to a last-minute wish towards the Triforce, trying to get rid of the Guardians. She probably used this ability combined with the Bow of Light to protect herself on her way back to Hyrule Castle. Think of how she fights in Age of Calamity, but not plowing through so many enemies at once. Zelda of the Wild keeping Calamity Ganon sealed away mirrors how Zelda of the Skies kept Demise sealed away for thousands of years, so Link could obtain the Triforce. While these two seem the same, there are two reasons I think differently. One, we see the mark of the Triforce and light going outwards of Zelda in Breath of the Wild, while in Skyward Sword, no such mark appears on Zelda, and the light goes inward. The second thing is that both of them gave up two very different things in order to do so. Zelda of the Skies gave up her consciousness, making her only way of communicating with Link being prepared messages that Fi would translate. Zelda's body still exists, however, she's essentially stuck in a state of sleep. Zelda of the Wild, on the other hand, gives up her body and takes a spiritual form. Zelda is still very aware of everything that's going on in Hyrule, and can still communicate with Link, which she does. A lot. She is even able to manipulate Link's position while holding Ganon back. So while I think on the surface they seem similar, I think they're actually quite different. I know some people will chalk this all up to aesthetic differences, but it doesn't sit right with me to just let it go. I think this one is the real kicker to me. Ganon has been sealed away before in the past, but never like this. Using the Master Sword and the Bow of Light has worked in instances where it's just outright killing him, but not to seal Ganondorf away. Despite the fact that they refer to Hylia's power as the sealing magic, sealing Ganon always required help from other forces like the sages, with one exception. In Skyward Sword, Link participates in a duel with Demise. Upon defeating him, Demise is sealed into the Master Sword. While it is true that Hylia created the sword, it's clear the only reason this was able to work was because it was infused with the power of the golden goddesses themselves. In fact, the game shows us that the sword is nowhere near this level of power when Hylia first created it, because Girahim straight up rips the sword from your hand and uses it as its own, something that would kill you if you tried to do that in present-day Breath of the Wild. It's clear that the power of the goddesses made this fight as simple as it was. So why was it so simple in Breath of the Wild? I mean, sure, they had the divine beast, but the Sheikah attempts at recreating the divine don't really end well. Well, I believe the only reason Zelda was able to seal him away at this point, something that she had proven time and time again unable to do by herself, is because she was, in fact, using the Triforce in this moment. I know some people will say that the fact that the Calamity was so easy is because it's a puppet, therefore it doesn't count, but keep in mind that there is more malice and a larger scale than we had to deal with in Skyward Sword, which was a lot harder of a fight, by the way. So I assume by now you're going to think I'm going to say that this is the Triforce and nothing else. But I actually don't think it's one thing or the other. I think it's a combination of the both. I think that things like the Prophetic Dreams and the Ball of Light were completely Zelda's sacred sealing power. Like I mentioned earlier, I believe that some of these abilities are abilities she doesn't need training for. They come naturally to her. However, I believe that the abilities to create mass energy blasts, hold the Calamity back for a century, and still get in a way where the Triforce is doing. People often ask, what if she had the Triforce, then why didn't she just wish for things to go back to how they were? And my answer to that is she doesn't know she can. She's thinking about her wishes in small terms. I want to stop these guardians. Done. I want to hold back the Calamity until Link gets here. Easy. I want to steal you away. Bye. It's not that she can't wish for bigger things. She just doesn't think she can, so she doesn't try. Now, do I think Zelda will have the Triforce in Tears of the Kingdom? Absolutely not. I honestly believe that it will be stolen from her early on, and that she and Link will have to rely on other methods to save the kingdom. But yeah, that's my take on the true nature of Zelda's powers in Breath of the Wild. Hey guys, it's me, Masked Majora. First of all, I want to thank you for sticking with the video this long. And I also want to apologize for the relatively low quality. This is a video that I've been working on for about a year now, and I spent almost the entirety of that year researching because I went and played through almost every other Zelda game. But due to a bunch of work problems and a lack of motivation, it's taken me so long that I basically had to rush the actual production part, which explains the low quality and stuff. But, yeah, so I need to get this video out before Tears of the Kingdom did, and I honestly wish I could have done better, but I don't really have the time. But I owed it to myself to actually finish this video while I still could. So, thank you everyone for watching. Thank you for all my subscribers who have been patient with me these past year. And I'm Masked Majora, and I'll see you later.